about COVID coverage. So I'm going to start, Pam. I'm going to ask you the first question. You can give us the answer based on your knowledge. So the first question, are there different types of COVID coverage and how much different are they in price?
Well, COVID coverage does come in all shapes and sizes. You can buy policies that are strictly COVID only, meaning they don't cover any other emergency medical costs. They are designed strictly to provide coverage for COVID. That's especially useful if you already have a policy that has other coverage. We have other policies that cover both emergency medical costs as well as COVID, and they will vary in the amount of coverage that they provide for COVID, as well as some additional benefits for quarantining if necessary. They do differ in price, but the price seems to be more driven by the person's age and their medical conditions, as well as their destination, and not necessarily the coverage that they're offering.
Yeah, so many people ask for coverage with COVID insurance that we don't even quote very much coverage without COVID insurance. So it's hard to know what they would pay for that same coverage without COVID coverage, because we just don't get that request very often.
Exactly.
Okay, here, you can answer this one as well. Do COVID plans include regular emergency medical coverage or just coverage for COVID?
Well, if it's a COVID only policy, then no, it would be designed just to cover medical costs incurred due to testing positive for COVID. So again, you'd have to make sure that you have other coverage in place for other medical situations. If it is a plan that does provide both, then all medical costs are covered.
Yeah, so these COVID only plans, they would be good for, like, if you have credit card coverage or some other coverage that doesn't offer coverage for COVID, just coverage for everything else. So you can kind of put them together.
Yeah. All right, here's one for you, Lori. Where on your policy does it indicate that we do have COVID coverage?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So basically there's two different areas to look at to find out what your COVID coverage is. You should look on the insurance confirmation of insurance document. It would say on there if you've purchased like the COVID rider or some additional coverage for COVID. But then you should also check in the exclusions section, because in the exclusions you're going to find the exclusion for the travel advisory, which obviously with the travel advisory in effect now, that's an important exclusion right now.
Exactly. Is the COVID coverage in Canadian or US dollars?
Ooh, another interesting question. I guess this one depends on which company you're purchasing with. Some companies have their maximums in Canadian dollars. Some companies have their maximums in US dollars. But I feel like if you've got enough coverage, it doesn't matter if it's Canadian or US. It will cover you for COVID. Like if over $1 million, I think is for sure enough coverage.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't want any less than that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about COVID coverage for long-term stays for seniors?
Well, when it comes to coverage, you can purchase a policy for a single trip or you can purchase an annual plan. When you're going for a long-term stay, we definitely have policies that offer coverage, whether it be, 2 months, 3 months, or even up to the full 6 months if they've decided to go that long. So it definitely is available.
Mm-hmm.
Is the coverage available even during a non-essential travel ban?
Yeah, so pretty much like the coverage that we're selling that includes COVID is like extra coverage on top of the regular policy, and you're paying extra for that because you're getting coverage during the travel ban. So that's pretty much across the board available for anyone. So young people, seniors, snowbirds, long travel, short travel, all of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's the next one. Will anything change if the Canadian travel advisory is elevated? So I think that means like if they bring it to the no, like no travel at all.
Okay, so currently the policies we are recommending that do have the COVID coverage, it's not based on the level of the travel advisory. It simply states that even though there is a travel advisory issued, they are removing that exclusion and providing coverage anyway. So if the travel advisory is either elevated or not, it's not going to impact the coverage on those policies.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do you need travel and COVID insurance when traveling within Canada, Lori?
Well, I mean, there are charges that you could incur if you were traveling within Canada that wouldn't be covered by the government health insurance plan of your province or territory of residence. So that's always been the case. You know, whether it's, you know, an ambulance ride or, you know, if you are too sick to drive your car home, the insurance company would pay to send your car home. All those types of things. In terms of COVID coverage, I mean, the same would apply if you feel like you need coverage that, you know, because of charges that you could incur that wouldn't be covered by your government health insurance plan, then you should definitely purchase travel and COVID coverage when traveling within Canada. Now, right now, there is no travel advisory issued by the government for travel within Canada. So you don't actually have to pay extra for COVID insurance. You can just buy a regular travel insurance plan, and that would cover you for like whatever medical problem that you might have, including COVID. But if that should change, then you would have to buy a special COVID rider.
Right.
Okay, does trip cancellation insurance cover COVID?
That's going to depend on the policy. There are a lot of insurance companies out there that will not cover you if the reason for cancellation happens to be because of COVID. So you have to be very careful when you're looking at trip cancellation coverage and make sure to ask that question. We do have one policy that will cover you as long as you've purchased the policy prior to anything being wrong. If you had to cancel due to COVID, it would provide some coverage for you.
Good answer.
Are you currently offering multi-trip annual plans that also include COVID coverage?
Yeah, so we have one company at the moment that really has good COVID coverage that the price isn't, you know, sky high. We have a couple of companies that are offering annual plans that include COVID, but you know, some of those companies, the price is just so high that you know, it's hard to justify the price for how much COVID coverage that they're providing. But yes, we do have some good options for sure.